Welcome to the Making Money in the Music Business podcast, where we share insightful views on a variety of topics in the music industry that can help you make more money from your music business. And now, here are your hosts, Dr. William E. Smith and Kenya McGuire Johnson. All right, we're up and running.
Hello, hello, hello. We are up.
So we are back for our third podcast.
Yes.
And I'm excited.
I know. These have been really fun. And it's kind of cathartic to a certain degree. Yeah,
that's actually, I would have to agree with that. Yep. So I've taken a different tack today. What I'm doing is I'm surprising you.
Oh, I love it.
With the topic.
Oh, did you hear my doorbell ring? Okay. No.
Yes, I heard your doorbell.
It shouldn't be anybody. I'm just going to let it. It's probably a mail package, but keep going. I don't have to get it. I wasn't expecting anybody.
And that's the reality of doing work out of your home.
Exactly. Phones, doorbells, but I'll take it.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Could be a check.
Yep. Could be a check. I doubt it. Nope. But that's all right.
All right. So today's topic that we're going to talk about is how to release a recording.
How to release. How or the best way, though.
Yeah. That would be. Well, we'll get into that. We'll, I guess, decipher down what the best way is to release a recording.
Okay. And
also, we have to probably make a distinction between a single or an album.
I agree, because it is a different process, different
totally
mindset.
different. Well, not totally, but
not totally, but it is different. It is different.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So the first question I would probably bring up is, what's the best time to release during the year? And then how much lead time should you allow for?
Right. Well, you know what? I will say this. It kind of depends a little bit on what your kind of ultimate goal is. You know, if you are just, I tell my clients, who get coaching, what are we looking at with this release? What are we trying to, accomplish? If we're just doing this so that we feel good about ourselves, and we just want to, make this accomplishment and just get it going, then I don't know if you have to see what the best time or whatever. But if this is something that you're actually really trying to get some traction and get some visibility, I would say, spring releases and early summer probably are your hot times, popular times.
Unless it's that new Christmas album.
Right. And I actually was going to say something about Christmas, but if it is not Christmas and we're just, again, just trying to do a single or a project, whatever that is of our own, I tend to think that, but that is by no means, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in that, but I do think that those time periods are just feelings of people kind of getting what's the word? Your audience is definitely, I think, a little bit more open in those time periods of the year. It's a feel good time usually for people because, spring, the weather is shifting, and summer, and people are having parties and they're going to concerts and they're getting out a little bit more. So music is, traditionally that kind of way of ramping that stuff up. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think also it depends on your marketing, what you're aiming for. If you're shooting for a certain topic, Black History Month release, or Women's History Month release, shoot if you have an Irish record, you want to make sure you get it out for St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
Or, Cinco de Mayo, if you got some good drinking tunes,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's whatever your marketing angle is, you want to definitely time it with that time you release with those dates.
Right. And I really, again, because I think that when people are about to release music, it's already very overwhelming. And to put yet another, oh my God, I have to do this only in March or April. No, I wouldn't say, I'm just saying those are more popular. But definitely, I know I've released in late summer. I've released in early spring. I've released in, midsummer. I've done, but yeah, I would say if you really want the advice of what's the best time, those times are
the best to think about.
Yeah. You just got to be thinking about not just about your schedule, which is primary. You got to be thinking also realistically, what is going on in your life in these time periods. And,
Exactly.
but, again, while we make art to, fulfill our desires and passions and all of that,
express ourselves. Yeah.
there's still a customer, there's still somebody waiting to
go.
receive it. So you got to think about them. Yeah.
So taking that into consideration, we're in the month of May right now. And if someone was releasing an album in May, when should they have started?
Okay, so this is where I really say album and single are very different. Okay. Album, and I also say it's very different depending again on, what's your goal. But, typically, yes, you want people, particularly an album, because an album means you slaved over this thing. You've got at least probably 8 songs, going here. So, I think that, with that being said, I don't know. People don't want to hear this, I'm sure, but I don't know if I could say. Some people say, 3 to 6 months or 2 to 3 months. I don't believe that anymore. I actually, this is what I think. I think if you have put the effort of putting an album together, therefore you should hopefully want people to hear it, because that's a lot of work to just be doing it for yourself. Then you have to build up a lot of momentum, a lot to get people.
I think that's a very strong, powerful word that you just brought in. Yeah, momentum is everything in terms of business, and if you're trying to make a living and trying to make money off of what you're doing, which is the name of this podcast, making money in the music business.
Yep. So no more of us talking about, I just did this for you're right. This is making money in the music business. So yeah, we're going to talk about then if you're trying to make money off this project, that is what we're going to use then as our philosophy as we're talking about this.
We need to think about building that momentum in order for that to happen. And that's and basically to build enough momentum. 3 months is minimum. Is
nothing.
Completely minimum.
It's nothing.
6 months gives you a good amount of ramp up time.
Yeah.
But really, I'm leaning on the side of 8 months.
Yeah, no, I'm leaning on the side of that too, and I'm leaning even maybe 9 to 12. Yeah, really, you do. And again, this is we're trying to focus on how do we make money on this, and so I have been talking to a lot of artists who kind of go in shock when I say that, and I'm like, but remember, what are we doing? Are we doing this? So. Yeah, because again, you got to think about how we listen to music anyway. I try to really have people think about your own habits of buying and listening to music, and particularly to those artists that are newer or artists that you don't necessarily, that are not big and plastered and iconic and legend, but kind of more underground or whatever. It takes us. It may be years before you start. I slept on that artist for 3 years and then I bought their album. And
right.
It's a very common thing to happen with, your more independent underground and I when I say underground, I'm just meaning not being a mainstream commercialized promotion type of thing. So if you look at your own habits, you realize you don't really catch on to newer stuff until you've really heard a lot. And
Yep.
there's been a buzz or, more and more people talking about it, or you're hearing it more often, or you're seeing it on Facebook or social media, you're seeing the cover art a little bit more or whatever, then we start tuning in. And so you need to be thinking about it.
I've been working with an artist trying to we're doing an EP, which is basically an album. We started back in October.
Yeah.
And we just released a single last month, and the EP is not coming out till June. So, I mean, really, that's 8-9 months
when you
before
said,
you release the album.
You said you started in October. You mean you started recording, or you started?
Well, everything.
Okay.
What I did was, and I was sort of guiding him through the process. We're talking about marketing the project when you start.
Right.
So we're recording. We're actually doing dual purpose. We're recording and marketing at the same time. So what it's doing is building up a traction, just a level of traction and momentum of people getting interested in the project.
Absolutely.
While it's happening.
Yep.
During the process, and so they feel like they're a part of the process.
Yep. That's critical right now. I mean, I think I know I did that as well. I think a lot of artists, engage your people so that they know something's on the horizon. I do think that you have to sometimes be a little careful how much you engage, or the kind of the art of engagement while you do that too. You,
right.
To me, you don't want to give away too many of your goodies. You want to keep it interesting enough that people want to hear it, but you don't want to me, be giving it away where it's like, well, I already heard, half that album while they were, while they were putting it together. So yeah, and it's interesting you bring up EP, which I do think actually has yet another kind of release space, because if it isn't as large as a CD, and usually EPs are ways for people to, I don't know, either introduce themselves or even introduce a concept, or kind of just touch on a space of music that they want to, kind of get out there. And so I do think that release, you said you guys released a single about a month ago, and now you're not going to do it until June. And that's EPs can kind of run a little bit, I think, closer. But yeah, I think when it starts getting a full-fledged, long, epic album, you got to be really strategic.
Yeah, we're treating it sort of like an album.
Okay.
For those y'all out there that don't know what EP stands for, it's extended play, and it's actually sort of a title given for a longer single.
Right.
So it's sort of you're making a single be extended. That was sort of the concept. But nowadays, it's pretty much turned into an album.
Yeah.
And people are just releasing an EP, which is a shorter album.
Right.
Basically, that's how people think about it nowadays.
Right. And
so,
and just to kind of keep in mind, if in the whole world of Recording Academy and Grammy stuff, if it's more than, I want to say, 5 or 6 songs, it's no longer considered an EP. So they do consider, right. I think it's 5. I want to say at least. I think
that's what it is.
3 to 5 or something, like 2 to 5. But it may be up to 6. I could be wrong. But yeah. So that release thing. So that's one component. That the timing, and so if you're looking at, I wanted to do a spring release, a May release, then you're going to need to start that buzz easily in the fall. I do think that, what you did, releasing the single first, obviously is huge. I do not think you should just drop a full album without anybody have heard anything yet.
Exactly.
And it's really your way of having a compass also, or a barometer, or some kind of measurement of how are people how are people reacting, and what's translating and what's not. It kind of gives you an idea. You'll probably be very surprised what connects and what is not connecting with your audience. So. Yep,
and the other thing that I had, the other question that I had, and we're going to try to get to some details now. Mm-hmm. If you release a project and you've done the recording, you've got your timeline straight, when it's coming out, what distribution service do you use?
Okay. So
is it CD Baby? Mm-hmm. Is it DistroKid, mm-hmm. Louder, Reverb Nation? I think there's a whole rack of them.
There's a lot of them. Yeah.
So what do you use?
What do
Kenya?
I use? Well, I will say when I very, very, very first started out, I used Reverb Nation. That was back in 2009. I used Reverb Nation because one of my producers told me I should.
Okay.
So I really didn't research. I didn't really kind of see, what are my options? I just said, okay, you want me to do that? I'll go do that. So I kind of fell into that, but it actually was a good falling because Reverb, the plus about Reverb Nation is, and just so people understand, distribution meaning how are you going to get your music so that the public can access it outside of maybe your website, So you could have your music available on your website, but if you're wanting your stuff on iTunes or you want your stuff on Amazon, you don't go and call or Google or email iTunes. They don't accept accept the submissions that way. So you have to go to what's called like a third party type of distributor, and so you've got a multitude now. You've got a lot of different options. There's some more popular and staples in it. Reverb Nation is a big one. Obviously, CD Baby is a huge one. And CD Baby has really extended a lot of what they do compared to when I was first releasing music. But the nice thing about Reverb Nation is it allows you to also create this kind of profile, like almost like a mini website. So if you haven't been able to get your website up going yet, and you get to create this whole kind of profile page in addition, and they rank you according to how your music is getting plays and purchases and stuff, and they'll rank you within whatever city you live in. And so it's kind of cool to get an idea. There's a little bit of a community of artists, independent artists there. So I used that, but that was the first time. And I think
who are you using now?
Yeah, so now TuneCore is who does my primary distribution. And so, my last full album that I released on my own, I did it through there. And then when I've had some different remixes, singles, and so forth, I've done them through TuneCore, and I've actually been pleased with TuneCore, mainly because the one thing about Reverb Nation, you get monthly reports. TuneCore gives you weekly, and so I'm able to kind of have a better gauge of what's going on in terms of sales, as well as streaming, and I can get my money like weekly. At Reverb Nation, you can't. That's a monthly kind of payout system.
Yeah.
I don't know how CD Baby, but believe it or not, I technically I am on CD Baby. They don't handle my distribution. So that was the other thing I was going to say. You can with CD Baby, because they have extended so much of their stuff, you can still make it so that people can get your music directly on CD Baby, but they may not necessarily handle getting it out to iTunes and so forth. So like you can go to CD Baby and get my stuff. You just can't. They're just not handling my distribution.
Your iTunes and Spotify stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I've used CD Baby since the beginning.
You're a CD baby. Get it? You're a CD baby.
I'm an official CD baby. I was there from way back. And I'm also on the Orchard, which is something that a lot of people were trying to get in, and I think they did a cutoff or something, and you have to be at a certain level now to get on the Orchard. But I was in the beginning of Orchard too, so
nice.
I got grandfathered in. So
Okay.
So CD Baby though, they have really they're pretty much the standard.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
In terms of distribution, independent artist distribution, so much so that I think major label acts, even when they leave their label, they'll go to CD Baby.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and it's a very comprehensive service, I would say. But for that comprehensiveness, you do pay.
Right,
So-
right. And all of them you do pay. Yeah, let's make that clear.
Yeah.
It's not like there's this freebie. You know, these are companies who they're not just doing this because they love independent
For free,
artists for free, right? You know, yeah. So, yeah, I've thought about. I definitely have thought about. You know, with my, and this is the nice thing about being an independent artist. You're not like tied to. You know, you can kind of go wherever you want for each project. Honestly,
Totally. Yeah, that's a very good point.
yeah. And recognize that, you know, and I think also as independent artists, you know, you really have to remember your independence when it comes to releasing music.
There you go. Hey.
And that, you know, sometimes we can get kind of caught up on what we see and, you know, what we hear. And so we put these weird kind of constraints on ourselves. When no, you're independent. So you don't have to, if your goal was, you know, May 1st is when I'm going to try to release this album and some stuff happens or you realize you're not getting the buzz you really need, these are why projects get delayed. When people sit up and they say, oh, that artist just isn't, they're just up to nothing. They just can't release. Well, no. They're
trying to get it right.
They're trying to get it right. And it's really usually a marketing and a money right. That's really what the right most often is. And if, you know, what happens with labels, if they don't feel like the single that they use to be as the commercial basically for this album, is doing as well as they needed it to do, or it's not, you know, they're not getting the radio airplay or they're not whatever, and let's say then they release a second single, which I was going to talk about, but we'll get to that, and it's still not doing what it needs to do, you know, they will hold a project because financially for them, they know, you know, we've got to have at least a certain level of attention on this single or units or whatever going before we feel comfortable with, you know, financially kind of spilling the beans on this. And so
and for a label, that is a big expense to
huge.
Market and promote an album.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely why you hit the nail on the head. A single is definitely a commercial for the album.
And it should be for you too. And that's, you know, think of it like that. But the beauty of you as an independent artist, you're not this label that, you know, basically is they literally on their fiscal accounting numbers, whatever, expected to get this income in May. So we got to roll.
Right,
you know, I mean, that's that where you as an independent artist, maybe you did, but you know, you're going to have more flexibility in that. So
exactly,
you know, if you need to push it back, you know, it's all right. It's all right.
It's all right.
It is all right. And the beauty of social media, it's easy to say, now the new date is this. I mean, people don't even pay much. Okay, you know, they just keep it going.
Then okay, fine. I'll wait till next week.
I'll wait till next week. Right, exactly. So don't feel like you have to. You know, I get a lot of artists saying, "Well, I told myself though. I said this was going to be," and it's like, okay, but you know, it's all right. You know, let's look at the situation. You know, if it isn't that date, what's happening?
So there's some other services I just want to bring in. DistroKid is a fairly new one, and someone actually just hit me to them. And they're actually cheaper to use.
Okay.
But I think they don't. I'm not sure. And what I'll do is I'll post a link. There's a good article. This other guy, he has a nice blog about the music industry, and he did a review on all of them and all the main ones.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
definitely. I would love to see that. Because actually, I just had a artist friend who posted on Facebook saying, who thinks that what's the best one I should use? Is CD Baby the best, or should I be looking, somewhere else? So yeah, I'd love to see that.
Right.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I'll post a link to that article. And but yeah, they do. I think the downside is they don't service a couple key players, but they don't charge as much, and I think you make more money. So
right.
Yeah, but there's a lot of them out there. I'd go with CD Baby because they've been there the longest.
Yeah.
And I know that they're not going nowhere.
Yeah, listen, you're not going to go wrong with the CD Baby. I mean, they've got a really, really strong reputation, and they're, like I said, they're really expanding in positive ways for artists. So I think TuneCore is trying very hard to, they're a big competitor, but they're not as expansive at all as CD Baby.
Yeah, but just check the article if you all are still trying to up in the air or whatever, and you want to see what more bang for your buck you can get. Just see which one you
I
want
might
to deal
be
with.
switching up. No, just playing. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to know.
So the other thing about releasing a recording is, and we'll come back to the distribution point in a second, but I want to bring this in. What do publicists do?
Ooh. And I am not a publicist. I work with publicists. I have a publicist. I don't want to say this is what they do, and then some publicists call me or say, that's not what we do. Yeah. So this is just from my perspective, at least with music and what they can do for an independent artist, particularly. The publicist role is really, they're the ones trying to get your music exposed or get you really honestly beyond your music. They're really more so focused on you. They're trying to get people to connect with you. And, they're using your project as a vehicle. As a vehicle. Yes. Very nice. They're using your work, your project as a vehicle to getting you. And so that people, because, yes, people definitely connect to music. They really connect to people. So if we've got this great artist with this great project, that's good stuff. So publicists are, that's their goal, is to do that. And so, with the way that, yes, as an independent artist, you really can get yourself and music out to the world. Do you have to have a publicist? No, you don't. But there are certain things, if you're like, well, how do I get on, in that magazine, or how do I get on that music blog, or how do I get, interviewed, for this, or how do I get this review? Yes, there are a lot of independent markets out there where they will accept independent entries. But the more popular an e-magazine or music blog or TV show or radio, the more dominant or, mainstream or whatever they are, they no longer accept those solicitations from artists. And I really want artists to understand that, it's not, because it's very quick for artists to feel really defeated. Like, well, God, I sent it to, all these places and nobody responded, or nobody, I got nothing. It's crickets. And a lot of times it's simply because that's not the protocol. That's not how they, review. So what a publicist can do, a publicist has those relationships. They are the people that people talk to. So when a magazine or a music blog or a show, TV show or whatever, they have relationships with publicists in order to get their content to feature. And so that is the good thing about, if you're really trying to hit the market in a more powerful, impactful way, then a publicist is really helpful in that, and because they have those relationships and they're the ones that are speaking for you, and they know the art of how you pitch.
Right. Exactly.
You don't really know the art of how you might think you do and say, well, I'm this, and you may pick out this picture of yourself that you took that even though it wasn't professional, you like, it sure does look good of me because I like my hair that day. That may be all good, but that's not the art of pitching. And a publicist knows what that needs to look like,
Yeah, they when we say that they have the relationships with these media outlets and the press, they know what they're looking for, and they know how to present it to them, and they know when they're looking for it.
Exactly.
So the relationship side is a really big deal, in getting your stuff presented, and that's I wouldn't say it's priceless, but it's an important.
Well, it is,
very
which
important
is why
element.
it's just as important for you to interview that publicist, because
Right.
if that publicist, a lot of people can say I'm a publicist, but if that publicist doesn't have the kind of relationships for the kind of material that you're trying to do, a strong and good publicist is going to let you know, while I'm good at this is what I do. This is, these are the relationships I have within this. I think your project is great in you, but I don't really you need to be in, in this space. Or maybe I have a little bit of that and I can kind of, finagle a little bit. And, most publicists, they can work their way through stuff. But it's just going to be really important for, you as an artist, if you've got, because they're not cheap. No, they are not.
They are not cheap. they are not cheap. They, I think the average is somewhere between 2,500 to 3,000 or 3,500 a project. A month.
A month. Yeah, I was going to say, let's get this right. Let's say a project for a year. No. Let's say that right. A month. Your mainstream publicists, absolutely. They're starting you at that level. You have some publicists who they can be a little bit more flexible with what they charge because they have some clients that are very high paying clients, or some labels or whatever. So then, if they are freelance publicists, or they have their own firm, that gives them some breathing room to maybe take a smaller, more independent artist who doesn't have that kind of budget. But yeah, no, because their fee is significant and can easily eat away
your whole budget.
Yep, quickly. You got it. That's a, it's a serious move to decide to have a publicist. And in my opinion, I think that if you're just for the first time ever releasing an EP or, thing, I wouldn't say go run and find a publicist. You need some time and if you have this crazy investment though and budget and funded and
but yeah, if you have the budget and you want to go out hard and go out swinging, they could get you on the Ellen show and you can.
No, really, they have that. I know for me, I had released 2 EPs before I decided to get a publicist.
Right.
And honestly, it was one of my mentors who kind of pushed me to start thinking about publicists. And the reason why the person was pushing me was more because they said, you've got some really good material here that I feel like, more media outlets need to know about this. And there's only so much you can do, here. So that's kind of what pushed me to decide to start thinking. And the very first publicist I had, we went very small. I will mention him because I think he's wonderful and he was really a great match for me. His name is Bill Carpenter. And what was great about Bill was that he recognized this was my first time ever doing anything like this. And so I was really like, what are we doing? And so, and he was really good about us before we even decided to work with each other. We talked for like hours, and most publicists, that's what they'll do. They need to get to know who you are, so that they're not just taking a picture and then taking a project, and then the more they connect with you, the more they can be your advocate and pitch.
Yeah, they have to know how to sell you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I would say think of, and this analogy just popped in my head, about a real estate agent trying to sell a house. They know how to sell a house, or should know how to sell a house, where to list it. And yes, they're going to get their commission, but versus you just posting, I have a house for sale. A real estate agent will market and push for your house to sell. Yeah. Right. So if that helps.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. And, and I think the more you do advance in your, music career, a publicist does become, to me, even more important than a manager. I'm going to be honest, because, if you're not getting any visibility, and I am transparent about my process. I those of you who have followed me or kind of seen, a lot of people like, oh, I've just seen your growth, or, all of this, I really attribute my publicists to all the because I've had different publicists, and all of them had very unique and wonderful attributes that really pushed me in my thinking. And then also, I'll give an example for my own Skin album, which was, that was my major album or whatever, in which I really invested in that heavily. So I did create a publicist budget. The publicist, her name's Gwendolyn Quinn. Like, she really, she worked magic on so many things, and she really pushed me to, in my photos, my images. She's like, we got to do another shoot. These pictures are fine. They're good, but let's do another. Let's get this. And I was very uncomfortable a lot. But I'm really thankful that she did that, because she opened some doors, from Essence to, BT to, some really major platforms that I otherwise would not have probably and not just because, but because she pushed me also to understand that you too can be in this, but you gotta
right.
So yeah.
So if you don't have a budget for a publicist, the best thing that you can do is locally go to all your local media outlets, your newspapers, your whatever bloggers and try to get the people who review music and the newspaper especially to come out to your shows, give them free tickets, give them free product, build a relationship. That's how I got my first reviews. I built a relationship with the Washington Post critic for jazz. Nice. And then I got other reviews from playing in festivals. Right. And here's the other tip: when you're on those festivals, the press corps is there. Yes. Right. Get to know them, talk to them, make some friends. They'll put you in the article about the festival. Yep. Yeah. So no, you're right. That's, and obviously that's not something that you just, you had to really work, to to make you
those
do.
relationships
You got to build
happen.
relationships.
You gotta build
exactly.
It. Yeah. And they do, some you will see that there's a lot of different internet outlets that will kind of, you pay a fee and then you can, submit your stuff to get reviewed, or, maybe it's not even pay a fee on certain things, but you'll see sometimes submissions to get your, to get some type of.
Right. You have those too.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with those. If you, the pay for ones get a little tricky, but I mean, if there's, if there's a free opportunity for somebody to kind of, and review can be kind of weird too, because you got to be careful on what outlet the review is kind of coming from. But I love what you said, and I do think that that I call that more your grassroots, and really just you got to get to
now.
People.
When we talk about making relationships, I want to be clear. I want folks to understand what relationships are. It's not that I'm making this relationship to get this from you. Right. It's a genuine relationship, because those are actually my friends. We keep in touch. We follow up with each other. We have great conversations.
But what do you do when they're not your friends? I mean, like, how do you?
I mean, well, you build those relationships, but what I want to I want people to come at this with a different tact. I want them not to just say, "I'm all about business." I want you to understand that these are people. That everybody that you deal with in the industry is a person. And I want you to approach them as a person, not as someone who can give you something.
That's gonna be our next making money in the music business networking, because woo-wee gee, There's a lot of, and I see it most amongst independent artists, like really not having a clue on how to build relationships and how to properly network. We've gotten incredibly complacent and lazy, and honestly, even immature and juvenile in the way that we approach networking because of the way social media, direct boxing people on Facebook and message and come listen to my stuff. Are you serious? No, that's not how you do this. That's not how you do it.
Yeah. I just wanted to make that distinction and make it clear because, because I was listening to myself and I was saying, yes, people could probably misconstrue this. And I want them to understand that, these are really good folks. I mean, I have even photographers. I have good relationships with photographers. Just besides them being a photographer, they're like my friends.
Right.
So I know them.
No, you're right. I mean, the relationship has to be kind of this whole, I don't want to say holistic, but like this whole type of relationship. And I think, again, remaining open and understanding that not every relationship will necessarily get you that immediate, so you're right. You don't want to be like, well, I'm trying to get this, so let me go become. No, you know what? You need to learn artist etiquette. You need to be involved. You need to be wise. You need to be, there needs to be camaraderie. And so, that's honestly, people, the prizes at the end, or these things that people, that eventually get you into, I don't know, a feature or whatever, are usually not because, with the intent of this. It's because we had this relationship and the person realized there was this opportunity, and then they were like, oh, and then there was like, oh, and it's very organic.
Yeah, exactly.
That way. And you have to give that time. You got to give that time too. Yeah.
Right. And everybody knows that everybody's trying to build their business and grow this and that.
Right.
And that's cool. You'll have those relationships on many levels. Especially in the beginning, you'll get to know folks just because everybody's trying to do their business. But eventually, especially at festival events, when you start talking to the press corps and photography folks and everybody else, you all are just hanging out. I mean, we're at the restaurants, the bars, just hanging out, and everybody's talking and chilling. And that's really how you build those relationships.
Yeah, I agree. And some people are more comfortable with that than others. And, I know that I deal a lot with that in coaching artists is, getting comfortable in that, in that kind of just hang space and just, and kind of waiting for these organic things. But yeah, no, those are all important and will definitely impact your release.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, right. Let's go back to the release.
It will. No, bringing it back. But it will. And the beauty of relationships is once they're established, and as long as they're nurtured to a certain degree and in positive ways, they're there. They're there. And so when you've got that next release, or when you've got that next event or whatever, they're there. So,
So the last thing I think we need to address or talk about is how to get radio station airplay and then music choice in Pandora.
You say that for last. That's a whole other podcast. But
maybe we'll reserve that for another podcast.
I mean, I'll touch it briefly, but that is like a podcast in itself.
That is.
Again, this becomes another. Now, music choice, Pandora. Those are specific. Well, at least, okay.
Strategies.
There's specific strategies for that. It is not a situation, again, where you just call them up. Can I get on? That's not how that goes.
Right.
Radio is very broad now. So we've got terrestrial FM AM, we've got satellite, we've got online internet, we've got podcasts. I mean, we've got a lot of ways that's quote unquote radio. So that therefore there means there's a lot of ways then to kind of approach it and get your music, played. I think that you absolutely positively need to hit something in radio, whether again it be internet, podcast, what satellite, whatever it is, you need to get on something because again, making money in the music business. If nobody hears your stuff, they don't really have a way of knowing to hear your stuff. And so radio is still the primary way that people access music, believe it or not. It's still the primary way. So,
I think the primary way now it might be YouTube. I think I saw a stat. That might be online.
I think it depends.
That might be online.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it also depends your genre, your demographics, your target audience. I know for the kind of music that I do, because I have the more mature listener, they're still accessing music. They're not accessing it on YouTube as much. They are definitely,
that's true.
It's but if you are doing your more pop, it kind of depends. But the point being, because there's so much, and this is why we'll do a whole podcast on it. You have to take different approaches, in which you try to get, airplay. But the thing to take home, at least from this podcast, is you need it. You need it. So you need it for a variety of reasons that we can get into on another podcast. But there seems to be kind of this, anti-radio. And I get it, because, your mainstream terrestrial radio has changed so much. But, you can't sleep on radio.
Become monopolized. Yeah. It's become monopolized.
Yeah, it has. And that is, it's that monopoly is facing its own challenges, and is recognizing that their competitors now are just revving it up. So they too are realizing we gotta shift some gears, but it's not going to be a fast shift. So so let's take home by you need it, and there's a strategy, and we'll do another podcast to talk about kind of those strategies you can utilize. The other big thing is, there are ways to get your stuff played without you dishing out money for radio. So that's the one thing I want to make sure people are clear. There, yes, radio can actually become for labels. That's probably their most expensive, space, honestly. But for an independent artist, that is a very beautiful thing, in that there are ways, to get your music on different forms of radio or internet or whatever, and you're not losing all your money. So
right, and also with these distribution companies, you get Spotify,
right,
and all these other services. So your music will be out there, and even Spotify has their own suggestions at the bottom.
Spotify's doing some nice stuff. Yeah, they're doing some good stuff to try to get. They're really kind of catering. They are. Let me say this about on a business tip. What Spotify has done is now employed a lot of label executives. A lot of executives at these major labels have left and have joined Spotify, these kind of spaces. And what they're doing is they're really trying to, financially streaming, obviously money is always a driver, but they're also, because they're getting a kind of a different lens into how artists, to the pulse of what artists are out there and how people want to be able to hear music. They're trying to be a little bit more artist friendly, and give those kind of, options. So you're right. Now Pandora's a little bit different. You can't just get on Pandora. Right. I don't even know what the formula. You get a little notices. Guess what? Your such is on Pandora. And you're like, wow, I made it.
You have to go. You have to go to the Emerald City,
right? You do,
and petition to see the wizard.
You do. That's serious.
Knock on the door. Yeah, and maybe somebody will come out. But they too
are having to loosen that up, because Spotify, please, they're giving them a run for their money. So they are. Yes, they are. It's shifting, but. Yeah, and music choice is completely different. I'll talk about that later. That none of those things work with that, and I'll talk about. Well, at least I don't know. My relationship with music choice was a little bit different, but I am on music choice. I will say that I am on that. So
yeah, so we'll table that one.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of strategies here to release a recording, And that's the reason, one of the reasons why we say take 8 months at least to release something, because there's so many things to do.
There's so many things to do. And I will say this, I wouldn't even think about, I was taught this by my producer, Kendall Duffy. He taught me this, and I really resisted it when he first said it. And he was 3,000% correct. I was proven completely wrong. But don't even think about that. While to me, I mean, and I when I say don't even think about that exact release date while you're recording. Don't do that. Don't just focus on, yes, you can market that you're, like you were saying, that you're doing this project, but don't get on that first day in the studio. Yeah, my new CD comes out August 1st. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you don't know that. Yeah. With this project I'm on now, we wrapped up recording, and it was during the mixing and mastering process that we said, okay, I think the release date will be this. Exactly.
For the single.
Right. For the single. That's what I was going to say. For the single, not even for, and I mean, and it was even more tedious on my end. I finished my whole album in May, around this time of 2014. And I released my first single in July. Okay, so we waited almost 2 months. But we had to, was what you just talked about, the radio piece. I wanted it to get on radio. So there was a whole process and planning for that. But just to give perspective, the album was done in May, but I didn't release my album. A label picked up my album in London. And so the first release of My Own Skin was done in March of 2015. Okay. So we're talking about a 9-10 month period, but I didn't release it on my own. I waited because I was hoping that I would get a label to pick it up, and so that was another part of my strategy. Which again, we need a part two. What's your goal? Are you trying to get a label to pick this up? Are you? I didn't want them to pick it up as me become a roster artist. I was trying to get someone to distribute it on a more grand level, who had a lot of pull and who had people, when you're tied to a label, it's like, oh, well, you're part of this. So they just have more power in getting your stuff heard and recognized. And so, but it took a long while. And then I released it on my own statewide, because the label in Europe only did the European territory. Yeah, they had their network there. Right. And so I did it on my own, not till August of 2015. So that was, remember, I finished May of 2014. So we really did a lot to get it ready. But I was very clear that I didn't want I didn't want another project that only my mom and cousin would listen to. I really needed, I felt very ready to have a greater audience.
And labels work differently depending on the country that you're dealing with. Yeah. I think labels in Japan, I think, like, multiple labels can have one project. Yep. Yeah. So, and you have to figure out what's your strategy. And those of you who haven't thought about overseas distribution or anything like that, I would say start researching it, dig into it and look into it, because depending on your style of music, that actually might be your market.
I was going to say, it makes it for me, changed my career. It completely shifted, completely. So, I knew too, though, that my music would really connect with that audience, with that, because that was something that I had really been into myself, and I could tell what music was connecting and what was playing. And so, it has done, and so remember this, if you can release your project properly, not only is it going to give you, maybe, more return in terms of, selling and sales and streaming. But when we talked about that relationship piece too, just understand, as you're releasing and you've got more DJs and more press and more people getting that, you're building those relationships that Will was just talking about. And so what it's doing, it's also setting up your reputation and your brand. And so if, please remember this, because if you're setting that reputation and brand really strong as you're doing that, then that's beautiful, because now as you release more things, people are quicker to kind of hear and respond and be a part of that. Whereas if you were really hard to get in touch with, the follow-up was poor, every time you were asked to submit, you were late, or maybe it was wrong. I mean, all those things people remember. So now when I come back again and I say, oh, yeah, that song was good, but gosh, when I worked with her, we had to go through this, we had to go through that, and and so they'll send you your best wishes, like, good job, but nah, I'm not trying to get involved.
They're not trying to work
in that.
with you.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's the other piece, is sending your music out to DJ pools.
Absolutely.
Getting a one sheet.
Yep.
And there's, in fact, I have a whole cheat sheet, a checklist for how to release a record. And that's something actually I was giving away on my website, and I think I'll post it back up.
Please do.
On my website.
Please do.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a long list. It's a checklist for you to follow. It totally is. It's a checklist for you to follow to make sure that you were dotting your I's and crossing your T's as you released your record. So
I love it.
I'll make that available on the website. Just go to the website, makingmoneyinthemusicbiz.com, and a link for it will be there. But
Excellent.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you need to do is, and there's a couple other things, and we can cover those in another podcast. In fact, if you have questions, if you have something that you would like for us to talk about or cover on the podcast, you can send us an email, and the link will be there for the email as well.
Right. Yeah. And as far as the email, I don't know if we're saying it, but you can email. I know you're getting some really wonderful nuggets. So yeah, go to his makingmoneyinthemusicbiz.com. You can also email info@creatingcrimson.com, and I will be able to get that to Will as well, and so we'll be able to answer it that way. You just gave some great stuff. Yeah.
My direct email is drwsmith@makingmoneyinthemusicbiz.com. So if you want to send a message or a question or whatever, but for podcast questions and anything related to the podcast, you can definitely email the info
at creatingcrimson.com. And we want to collect. We really want to hear from you. So submit your questions, because we'll make it. Or even if you have topic suggestions, things that you want to hear about, or want to kind of, definitely
go deeper into.
Yeah, go deeper into a topic. Then definitely email that to us. We're open to talk about it if it's something that we think we can talk about. I don't know anything about that. Never mind. No, but yeah.
We'll get the information and we'll get it to you. But we're really talking about some life experiences in this podcast, and just helping you all to turn your music business into something that makes money for you,
right?
And helps you to ramp it up to another level, because a lot of people are having problems getting to that other level of getting the income coming in. They see the money going out, but they want to see the money coming in. So there's definite strategies for that, and that's what we're trying to give here. So
absolutely.
Well, perfect. That was a great one. And
that was good. And again, visit creatingcrimson.com. We have our events and different things coming up. I just want to keep people, everything that we do really, Will, is what it's about, trying to help other people kind of grow what they're doing, their business. So that's really what Creating Crimson is about. And our events are all about that. And I would say the biggest event that is a series is artvoicesmatter.com. Go to Art Voices Matter is a celebrity masterclass series that's being held in Chicago. And it really is, not only you're going to hear this information, but you're hearing it from people, from really noteworthy artists who are, you'll find a lot of similarities, actually. Believe it or not, they'll tell stories that you're going to be able to relate to very easily. But because they've been able to achieve a certain level of artistry, can hopefully give you some other strategies. So those artists, there's a variety of artists that are coming, from your MC Light to Take Six's Claude McKnight, a lot of people. So just go to artvoicesmatter.com. I'm making sure I'm plugging that because it's another way to receive information and to learn and to grow and to build.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, this is another one of our great podcasts.
All right. Yes, winning. So until next time, I can't wait for the next topic. Will likes to surprise me, so that's good stuff.
Yep. Great. We'll see y'all next week.
All right. Bye.